Feeling stuck? Don't know where to go next with your geospatial career, or feeling a little bit burnt out? Don't worry, you've come to the right place. In this video, we're going to talk about how you can advance or get back into a geospatial career by advancing and learning new tools, skills, and different things that you can use in your career on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is actually a continuation of another video that I did on the reality of being a GIS analyst. If you haven't checked that video out, you can see that over here. So I'd start there, then come back to this one later. So let's jump in. I've split my recommendations into 4 different groups. The first is technical. The second is looking at widening or the width of your skill set. The third is looking at deepening your different skills in different areas. And the third are some general recommendations that I would recommend for just about anyone in geospatial. So let's start with the technical skills. I'm sure if you've seen any of my videos, you know what I'm going to say here. That's right. Learning and adding new technical skills, specifically Spatial SQL and Python, are 2 things that can not only help advance your career, but also help you increase your salary, as you can see with some of the data here. Now, learning these languages, there's a few different approaches you can take. You can jump into some generic books or courses on these different topics, but I definitely recommend checking out some of these resources here. Obviously, I have a book on Spatial SQL. You can check that out. I go deep into all these different topics around everything with just learning basic SQL into really advanced Spatial SQL. As for Python, there's a lot of great courses here that you can see on the screen. I'm going to list them all as links below, so you can go ahead and grab those. But I definitely think having some base introductions to these skill sets, so you kind of understand the core concepts, then applying them to Spatial is a good way to go, because you're always going to have to go back and learn or understand those fundamental aspects to really carry that forward in either of these languages. Now, I can tell you from experience, I did this in a very backwards way with JavaScript. I tried to just learn what I needed to learn and not understand the fundamentals, and eventually you're going to get to a point where you have to go back and do that. So recommend starting with the basics and then going forward from there. The second technical skill that you can learn is actually understanding how the technologies you're using work, as it were, under the hood, right? If you're coming from a traditional GIS background, you're generally using like a desktop toolkit that may connect to some web services, but you may not know what goes on with all the things under the hood from a technical perspective. So let's take a very basic analysis to take a look at, maybe creating some points with buffers and then intersecting those with some other points, counting the points in those resulting buffered polygons. Now, no matter if you use a desktop tool like ArcGIS Pro or QGIS, you generally know you have to create the buffer and then you're doing that intersection. But what does that look like from a more technical perspective? Now, of course, you can do this with Python and SQL, and here's what that model might look like. I built this out in QGIS Model Builder just so you can get a sense of what that looks like. If you're looking to learn more about QGIS, check this video out over here. But basically, you know what's going to go on. Now, how you do that in SQL and Python, there's actually different ways to do this, but actually understanding how that code assembles and which way to run it is really helpful to understand what's happening there and how to run it more effectively. For example, you might create the buffers in your desktop toolkit, but there's actually functions in SQL to do this by just measuring the distance, which make them all the much faster. So there's simple things like that that you can learn and understand how that works. And no matter what area you're working in, you can apply these same concepts to raster imagery. You can apply it to geocoding, address work, literally anything you can do. You can find how those work technically under the hood. So that will help you translate those skills that you learned in the desktop environment into a more technical environment and help you progress that much faster. So that covers the section around the technical skills. Of course, there's more we could talk about, but I wanted to move into the depth section and adding deeper skills to your toolkit. Now, one that I think is really common in geospatial is the concept of certifications. Now, there's a number of different certifications you can get from places like Esri, Udemy, online learning platforms like Coursera, and many, many more that you can actually apply to and then use those learning programs to achieve that certification. And in fact, some jobs will require some level of certification. So depending on the work you want to go in, getting those certifications is a really good skill. But beside that, I actually recommend taking a look at certifications outside of geospatial. Things like if you want to work in a cloud environment, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, all these different cloud environments offer certifications for you to showcase your skills and are very helpful when applying to jobs in different areas. And on the flip side, if you're looking to move into more leadership or communication skills, plenty of platforms like Coursera and others offer these certificates that you can go for and learn and actually try those out. I have a partnership with Coursera. If you want to check out some of my favorite geospatial courses or any course in general, take a look at the link in the comments and you can go ahead and check those out. Now, it's not to say that you need a certification for any of these things. You can certainly take the courses and learn the skills, but once in a while, I like, having the actual certification to show that I actually did the work and completed the course to do that. The second bit is actually about writing. Now, I know that writing is a core skill for literally about anything these days, even with the advent of generative AI, but actually writing and expressing what you're doing in your analysis can be really helpful to explain what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to study, and things like that. And I know for a long time in my career, I didn't really write as much as I did early in college or writing papers and stuff like that. And this is more than just practicing your writing. This is actually a great way to showcase your ideas, if that's to potential employers or peers peers or anything like that. You can turn them into presentations to share, or you can actually just share them online with places like LinkedIn or any other social platform. I notice a lot more people doing this. I've kind of created a video to talk about how you can do that, but I think this is a great way to showcase your work and not only just show the map itself, but actually talk about what you're trying to do and ultimately why you did it. I think it's a good skill for anyone to have. So going deep on those topics you really care about from a writing perspective and a certification perspective can really help jumpstart your career. Now, when you look at widening your skill set, that means adding extra things to your skills or really looking into other areas. And that's the first thing I want to talk about, was actually applying your geospatial skills in different areas that you normally wouldn't do. So let's say you're working as a GIS analyst in a government setting for your local municipality. You may be doing a lot of maintaining of data, creating some web maps and things like that, but maybe taking that and applying it out to something else like environmental studies or looking at other factors in different areas, and doing some of that extra work to expand your skills will actually help you learn something else. You may need to pick up some skills around remote sensing. You may need to check out some different skills around using different toolkits and things like that. So not only does it help you expand your geospatial skills, but you also have to gain some subject matter knowledge around the topic you want to study. And this is great to also go into things that you really care about. If you're an outdoors enthusiast, if you're really interested in sports, if you're interested in travel, anything like that can really help you focus in those different areas. So take your core tools that you're using on a regular basis and apply it to some fun projects to actually kind of widen your skill set. And then using those skills to actually bolster your portfolio, which we'll talk about in a minute, and also expanding into other job opportunities is a really great way just to try out some different things without having a huge chunk of commitment. Now, of course, doing projects is all fun and good, but ultimately you may want to earn some income from those different projects. And you can actually do this with a number of different freelancing platforms. There's a lot of different platforms to do this. You can use Fiverr, Upwork, things like that, or just find other people that you want to connect with that may need that type of help, maybe a local business or something like that, to actually put your skills into practice, pick up a little extra money on the side, and kind of apply that side hustle to what you're trying to do. There's definitely great ways to do that, and you have a valuable skill set. Don't ever forget that, and make sure you're applying it to other things that you want to do in practice and, well, get paid for the skills you're putting out there. Now, the last two categories are kind of for anybody doing anything. I would recommend this to anyone in geospatial. The first is build your portfolio. Now, I don't think you have to overdo this. Sometimes simple is best. Here are some examples of really good portfolios I like. You just kind of have to showcase your best work and also talk about it. If you have a blog feature or something like that, you can put your writing there. You can put it on a platform like Medium. Your portfolio can really be anything. It doesn't have to be a website with your URL or your name or anything like that, but really try to put it and direct the message that you want to put out there. Make sure that when someone comes to that page, the first thing they're seeing is, I get that you do this. If that's Earth observation, if that's spatial analytics, if that's building web maps, whatever that is, that's the first message that someone should get, that by the first few seconds they look at your portfolio. So actually putting your skills into practice and building some sample projects is one of the best ways to actually utilize your portfolio. Finding those projects in different topic areas that you really care about, like I just mentioned before, or some of those side work things that you did in addition to your core work, is a really good way to do that. Now, of course, sometimes you may or may not be able to showcase things from your actual work, so filling your portfolio with these other items is a great way to get started to do that. Now, these are some really high-level recommendations. How you put these into practice is really up to you. I would recommend taking a few different steps to try and go through these different routes, but ultimately, you advancing your career depends on adding more skills in different areas, more knowledge in different areas, and then showcasing that to the world. So no matter what you do, doing those few things together is the core of what you need to do. So I hope you liked this video. If you enjoyed it, please like it and subscribe. That always helps with this YouTube algorithm that we are all working on. If you have any questions, drop those in the comments, and I will see you next time.